round of our weekly Monday morning quarterback segments where we talk about some of the events that happened over the weekend. Now, we're weeks away from the first day of school for most places, and most counties are going virtual this fall. But Fauquier County will be doing partial in-person learning, and they're sending teachers back to the classroom today to prepare. But the teachers union is making pleas to switch to an all virtual start. The board will meet tonight. We'll see if we find out anything else there. Also, an update on Washington football team owner Dan Snyder now filing that $10 million lawsuit after an online media company accused him of accepting payment in exchange for publishing defamatory rumors, including one that Snyder was named on a list of sexual offenders maintained by Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, that's the backstory. Let's bring in the guests for this segment. Satya Marar and Jason Nichols, good to see both of you again. Good morning to you. Satya, let me start with you. First of all, when it comes to education and getting the teachers back in the classroom, if the school says the teachers need to be there and the teachers say we don't want to be there, who blinks?
Look, at the end of the day, we have essential workers out there who've been out this entire time doing what they need to do, and they've been on the front lines. Some people argue, why should teachers be treated any different? The evidence is that opening schools either in a hybrid way or staggering their reopenings or so on is definitely feasible. It just depends on the extent of community transmission, and it depends on what social distancing guidelines are actually in place. But we know that it is doable. Now, what I say is this. Many parents prefer virtual. Many parents feel unsafe about sending their kids back to school. Some of them really want schools to reopen. And if that's what a parent wants, some kids have been left a full year behind their learning. This disproportionately affects kids from minority backgrounds and low-income children who rely on the social services that come with a school. Let them take a small portion of that money that the taxpayers are spending on their education to spend on either remote learning resources or to take it to a school that will in fact serve them. Because we know that the costs of keeping schools reopened must be weighed against the well-established economic, mental and social impacts of keeping them closed as well.
Jason, you're no stranger to standing in front of a classroom. I want to get your take on this. And if we can you get to that slippery slope of trying to, accommodate every student on their individual needs? Basically saying, can you put some kids in the classroom and educate some at home and have it an equal playing field?
I think that's going to be very difficult to make an equal playing field. I think that it is very different from learning face-to-face and learning virtually. I do not think those two things are equal. But at the same time, safety first. And I do think that my counterpart made some really good points about the ability to open schools. Of course, the American Academy for Pediatrics advocates opening schools if you can stagger times, if you can take some of the protocols that many other countries, particularly countries in Asia, have done that have been successful. However, not every county in the country has those resources, has the ability to stagger times, has the ability to do all of the things that are necessary. And so we have to actually, in some cases, just take this on the chin and make sure that everybody's safe. And he mentioned people from, low socioeconomic backgrounds. Those are also families, even including my own, which are multi-generational and may have vulnerable people in their households. So we have to keep them safe. While the children are less likely to get very severely sick from COVID, they can bring it back to their grandparents and make them very vulnerable to sickness and even death. So I think that the teachers have a point. A lot of teachers and housekeeping staff and maintenance staff have to be kept safe. In some places that's possible, and in other places we have to do things virtually. And, that is just a result of some of the failures that we did early on during this pandemic.
Satya, I want to get to you real quick on a final word here and a follow-up before we move on to our second half. What we saw play out down in Georgia already when we saw that the school that's now become famous for trending over the weekend reopens, the crowded hallways, the school then has to shut back down again. So is that the risk right now? And if so, is it more disruptive to start school in person and then have to shut it down?
Look, the right precautions absolutely have to be taken, and if they cannot be taken, then really the school should ideally not be reopening, or at least not in that fashion. We know that in some countries like Israel, for example, they reopened their schools, they had guidelines. After a while, they had a massive heat wave, and the kids were allowed to leave their masks at home. I don't know if that's the reason why they had massive outbreaks again, but that certainly contributed to it. So we need to do this once, we need to do this correctly, because if we get it wrong, it's going to cause huge issues, and parents are going to rightly feel apprehensive about getting their kids back into their school.
All right, let's move on to the second half.